This week, is beauty really in the AI of the beholder? A bug-eyed camera? And bringing colour to the Great War. This is Christie's auction house in London, and at the moment it's home to a curious painting. It's called Edmond De Bellami, and it is not what it seems.
What I like about the work that we're offering is that at first blush it looks like a portrait. The frame is all part of that. You approach it assuming it's like everything else you've seen. And then when you read the label and you read that in fact this has been created by an artificial intelligence program, I think then that's the real shock.
This is the latest image of a type that we've seen before on Click. Images that have been created using a form of artificial intelligence called generative adversarial networks.
As far as I understand it, the computer splits itself in two, and one half of the computer looks through 5,000 or 15,000 portraits, learns what a portrait is, and then makes its own version. It's not a mashup, it's not photoshopped, it has created a portrait based on the rules that it has learned. And then the other half of the computer flicks through all 5,001, and if it can pick out the computer one, then the other half goes back to the beginning and reruns it and reruns it and reruns it until the discriminator, as it's called, can't spot what the computer one is and what the human one is. And at that point, it pops it out.
This is the first piece of AI art to go under the hammer at a major auction at Christie's in New York on the 23rd of October. The picture-generating algorithm was trained by a collective called Obvious, three guys who live in an unassuming flat in Paris.
One of the most important aspects of cuisine is to have great ingredients. So, yeah, I guess for what we do, feeding data to algorithms, the quality of the data is crucial. If we see in the output something that speaks to us, we believe that it will speak to other people too.
Edmond De Bellami is one of a family of computer-generated pictures. Here's another, Le Comte de Bellami, owned by Nicolas Loguero-Lasserre, an urban art collector whose museum lives in the coding school École 42, also in Paris.
What truly astonished me about Obvious is that they created a hybrid between a startup and artists. What was great, we realized afterwards, was that a form of art that was subversive was brought here into this school, which also has a subversive spirit.
The discussion goes on about whether computer-generated works can ever be considered art. Obvious actually told us that the images themselves aren't important. They're making conceptual art, and you need to understand the concept, which in this case is the AI behind the scenes. It'd probably be a mistake, as some have done, to compare the work of Obvious with the masters of the early 20th century. Perhaps instead they should be compared to works of artists like Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons. And maybe the skill actually lies with the inventor of the generative adversarial network method, Google Brain researcher Ian Goodfellow, a surname which, when translated into French, becomes Bellami. Which brings us right back to Edmond De Bellami.
What we do is to make a physical piece, and we think that it makes the artwork more accessible because it's more traditional to have a physical piece and people can relate to it.
Just as Facebook creates no content, Uber has no taxis, and Airbnb owns no properties, digital art galleries of the future, like this place in Paris, might not have any physical paintings in it at all. And that would make these printed pieces by Obvious l'exception qui confirme la règle. Last week we reported on the new full-frame mirrorless cameras being shown off in Germany at the world's largest camera expo, Photokina. Dan Simmons played with the latest creations from Canon, Nikon, Sony and Panasonic's brand Lumix. Well, this week Dan is going to take us through a few other highlights from the show, including these.
Okay, smile. You don't have to shake it, but it is part of the culture.
It's really being driven by the youth market, so we've seen enormous growth in the last couple of years, and this year alone we're expected to sell 10 million instant cameras. It's not shared, it is something that's kind of away from the digital world. They're actually appreciating that more, and you can put your phone down and you can actually really enjoy the moment, but still capture the moment. But you get something, you know, amazingly tangible with an actual photo.
How long will something like this last?
It's a good 20 years.
Is it?
That it can last.
This does have a selfie mode, so
Should we have a
do
go?
you mind, shall we?
Sorry, a little bit closer.
Oh dear, yeah.
Can you do it?
Ready?
There we go, nice holiday snap from Dan, who is with us now. So this is clearly a move away from digital.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a fad or do you think it will last?
Well, it's the only sector of the camera market that's actually growing, apart from those mirrorless cameras we saw last week. But just in case it doesn't, it seems that Fujifilm have come up with something new. This comes out next week. This is the same as that, except it's got a screen on the back.
So that is digital.
And it takes video.
Right.
All right. Now, why does it take video? It's not a video camera, trust me, it's not a video camera. But when we start going here, yeah, we're just recording a bit of Omar there on the left, and Laura's our other camera person today, and then we can stop it. Now, on there is going to be about 20 to 30 frames that we can now just scroll around in between and decide which one of those we end up wanting to print. So there's no more kind of pointing, shooting, hoping.
Well, I thought that was half the fun, to be honest. But anyway, what else have you got?
100 megapixel camera. It is just a model at the moment. It comes out next year. And I asked them, you know, why would we need 100 megapixels?
Better clarity, wider tone of colours, and also when you're looking at black and white, more natural black and whites as well. I would say from about A3, A2, A1, that's when you start to see a difference in that kind of size of image. But even in the smaller size, you see much better detail and clarity.
Yeah, I can see you're not convinced, Ben. So how about we lighten things up? Okay. What do you think this could be used for?
Oh, interrogation?
Okay, well, it's actually a 360-degree camera when it's closed, like that. But when the two wide-angle lenses pop open, it transforms into a 3D stereoscopic camera. So you get a super wide shot, which appears to have more depth when you play it back in one of these. And platforms like Facebook and YouTube are already supporting playback of those files.
So is that one on sale yet?
No, that was a prototype. It goes on sale next year. But I do have a piece of kit that went on sale just 2 days ago.
Right.
This is the Insta360 One X.
Okay.
Now, not only have they increased the resolution from 4K to 5.7K, so you get a better 360-degree look to the whole thing, but it's also got a stabilization on it like I've not seen on any other camera.
Right.
Using your smartphone, not a laptop. It doesn't need post-production. It's all done in the app on your smartphone. It's very impressive.
Cool.
But it also does something else that we've not seen any other camera on this program do. Can you guess what that is?
Can it fly?
Yes, it can, Spen.
Seriously?
Well caught.
Thank you. Just.
Okay, what it did there was as it went through the air, it's taking video, and then that video can be slowed down, slow motion, and you get this beautiful arc shot of something that you shot below. And you can direct that because it's 360. You can just say, oh, I'm going to point downwards, as opposed to getting something that's up in the air. The only thing is that, of course, if it lands on the ground, it's a $400 piece of kit. You probably don't want to damage it too much.
Which $400, you say?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week that Google announced that it would shut down its social network Google Plus following a bug that may have exposed 500,000 of its users' details. More on Google in a bit. And Sony confirmed plans for a successor to the PlayStation 4. It was also the week that augmented reality firm Magic Leap held its first developers conference in Los Angeles. Guests at LeapCon were shown an array of interactive AR content, featuring virtual ray gun battles and flying robots that will apparently bring your living room to life. Oscar-winning VFX company Framestore were just one of the companies showing off their wares, with the multiplayer map-based game that included mini speedboats and helicopter-suspended bungee jumps. And whilst this next robot may not fly, it can certainly get some air. The Salto 1P, designed by researchers at Berkeley, bounces on one leg and can, like a ninja, jump across several different surfaces in a row. Two tiny propellers on board the mini hopper allow it to twist mid-air. And finally, the creepiest robot ever has been unveiled by university researchers in Japan. Smooth, slithery and determined, the snakebot can wind itself up and down ladders with ease, potentially sending shivers down the spines of window cleaners or DIY enthusiasts everywhere. Cable-powered, its only known predator is the fearsome off switch. Back now to Google, which hopes we forget about its potential data breach and be dazzled by a new lineup of devices it unveiled this week. New smartphones, its Pixel 3 and 3 XL, have larger screens, and the cameras have had an update too, helping them see better in the dark. They also sport a second front-facing wide-angle camera lens, intended for easier selfies, which is just what the world needs. More features than you can shake a selfie stick at comes with a price, starting at £739 and £869 respectively. And a new member of its smart speaker range was unveiled. The Home Hub comes with the Google Assistant and a 7-inch display, so you can use your eyes as well as your ears, a competitor to Amazon's Echo Show at £139. With no built-in camera, you won't be Skyping your pals, but at least you can watch cat videos on YouTube whilst cooking your dinner. But if you do want to be seen around the house, Facebook launched its new Portal video chat gadgets. Not the greatest of timing either, following its recent data breach scandals. Complete with camera lens covers to avert prying eyes, the tablet-like devices can track you around the room and zoom in on you. They've got Amazon's Alexa built in, use Facebook's Messenger for calls, and of course come with augmented reality overlays, so you can pretend to be a pig. Technology at its finest.
That was Nick. Now, this month is ADHD Awareness Month. This is a condition which is estimated to affect nearly 130 million children and adolescents worldwide, and it can continue into adulthood. Well, now a new study from King's College London is looking at treating the disorder using different kinds of technologies. That includes gaming, which is ironic because technology is often seen as an aggravator. We sent Sarah Emmett, who's had ADHD since childhood, to meet the researchers behind the study.
I'm Sarah Emmett and I have ADHD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Now, like most people, I have thoughts buzzing around my head all the time. It's very much like Trafalgar Square. Except with ADHD, it's really difficult to prioritise which thoughts should come first or which thoughts to focus on. It's usually the one that's most stimulating. So right now, stood here, it's definitely jumping on the lion. It can become a vicious circle with more and more ideas and thoughts presenting themselves as the most important until gridlock.
Studies of the brains of people with ADHD show abnormalities in the right prefrontal cortex. That's the area responsible for self-control and attention. Research is now using technology to affect neurological changes to this region. By activating this, which is often less engaged in the brains of people with ADHD, researchers are hoping to improve concentration.
Stimulant medication, interesting enough, also enhances the activity of this right frontal area. But stimulant medication has the problem that it has side effects. People don't like the side effects, of course. And it has been, longer term effects have not been shown. It works fantastically well for a year, but we've shown that the brain adapts to the drug. And that means when the brain adapts to the drug doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to find alternative brain therapies for ADHD.
There are cognitive training apps, often known as brain training apps, that you can buy off the shelf, but none of them are proved to help with ADHD. But now pioneering new treatments are on the horizon.
This is just to dampen the noise.
Yep. So I volunteered myself to act as a guinea pig to test out the exercises the experts are coming up with. The research being done here affects the plasticity of the brain, meaning the ability to change by reorganising itself and form new connections. One possible consequence is improved concentration and self-control. For the first experiment, I climbed into a brain imaging scanner that is calibrated to pick up the activity in the brain's right prefrontal cortex. The scanner is an MRI machine connected to a game that sends a rocketeer up into space. When my mind is focused on the area of the brain being scanned, the rocketeer goes up. The more I use that area of my brain, the higher he goes. So I'm enhancing my own brain activity.
Ready for the brain stimulation?
Yeah. Next up, a different exercise to stimulate my brain. The difference is, though, that this is a double whammy. At the same time as gaming, my brain will also receive external stimulations through small electrical signals that are delivered via bristles at the side of a helmet I'll have to wear. But like any good scientific experiment, I had to do a before and an after test to see just how much my concentration had improved as a result of the exercise. So first, a baseline test to establish my current level of concentration.
I feel like my brain's trying to find a pattern, and there isn't one.
What was only a 6-minute test felt like an eternity, so I can only guess that my concentration on the before test is pretty appalling. Now for the actual exercise. Using small electrical currents to stimulate my prefrontal cortex, I was put through my paces once again.
Pirate. Monkey. Sorry, I'm really bashing the iPad, sorry.
It's definitely fun and games. I just hope it's doing me some good.
Very good.
I've earned a medal.
And now for the final test to establish whether my concentration has improved.
Before the stimulation, you had almost 40% mistakes.
Yeah.
After the stimulation, you had only 25%. And on top of that, you were much faster.
For me, the way I felt was really important, and I didn't really mind how the data showed, but actually looking at it, I sort of feel really proud of myself. It's a huge difference.
It became much better. The neurofeedback, like the one you did with the Rocketeer, that we've done a pilot study, and we found the effect lasts for 1 year. You're training the brain, and of course it makes sense, it changes the brain, and therefore it has a more lasting effect than an external pill, which you just, which is a passive thing. You give the pill, next day the effect is back.
It's like the first time that Dorothy steps into the wonderful world of Oz. Black and white photos turned into glorious Technicolor. But artist Marina Amaral has used technology, not magic, to digitally edit 200 pictures for her new book, The Colour of Time. She's colorised photos from some of the greatest moments in history, taking up to 2 weeks to modernise each image.
So the process is very similar to what traditional painters do, and I need to select every tiny detail of the photos by hand, and I need to go building layers upon layers of colors and mixing them and trying to capture the original atmosphere.
The project is about using colour to connect us to the past, helping us to relate to the people and the emotions captured in the images. But it's only now that technology has allowed Marina to do this in so much detail.
I think the fact that we have Photoshop and also the digital tablets that we have now facilitate the process a lot, because when you are colorizing movies, for example, the process is very different.
And that's because colorizing 24 frames for every single second of footage was far too time-consuming to do well. Until now. To mark 100 years since the end of the First World War, movie director Sir Peter Jackson has embarked on a project to colorise films captured in the trenches. And Mark Chislak caught up with him at the Imperial War Museum.
They Shall Not Grow Old is a new documentary film about the First World War, directed by Academy Award winner Sir Peter Jackson. Using audio recorded in the 1960s and 70s, veterans of the Western Front recollect their wartime experiences.
You knew what was going on within your vision. Beyond that, you hadn't got a clue.
These stories are told over footage from the war, which has been painstakingly restored, colorised and converted into 3D by Jackson's team at Wingnut Films in New Zealand. Audio has been added in places, but the film develops entirely from the soldiers' perspective, in their own words. Their stories are told in an imaginative and startling way. The film flips from the patriotic fervour of veterans' accounts of their enlistment for war to the brutal and shocking realities of day-to-day life and death in the trenches. Some of these stories are told in a surprisingly matter-of-fact way.
You lived like tramps. You didn't polish any buttons. You wore any uniform bits that you liked and nobody worried. All they were concerned with was that you were fit to fight.
Peter Jackson and his team trawled through over 600 hours of audio and 100 hours of filmed footage provided by the Imperial War Museum's archive in order to construct the film. VFX wizardry smooths the movements of the images, removing any jerky pictures.
It's a very, very unusual method of storytelling. That struck me straight away. It feels different to almost any war documentary I've seen in the past.
The brief that they gave me was, on the surface it was very simple and very wide open. It just said you can do anything you want, but we'd like you to use our archive film in a way that is unusual. So the first idea I had was, well, how I get them to send me some 2K scanned material, like 3 or 4 minutes, send it to me in New Zealand where we've got our big visual effects department. Because I thought, well, how well can we restore this film? And then that blew me away. We were able to restore it way better than I ever thought we could. It took us a while to figure out all the techniques because we were taking it way beyond what anyone's ever done with restoration before.
How did you ensure that the colorization process, the restoration process and the 3D didn't overwhelm the story, the stories that you were telling, but enhanced the stories that you were telling?
Well, I wanted it to simply be in colour because they saw it in colour. We just think of the war as a black and white war. But it wasn't a black and white war to them. I mean, they didn't see it, black and white, so why should we show it in black and white? So I just thought, well, let's make it colour. And then in doing so, we also, the same as we did the restoration, we thought, well, this has got to be the best colorization that we've ever seen. What I found with colorization is, the longer you spend on it, the better it gets. See, that led to the next thing, because once you restore it, the thing that happens is that this film becomes about people, about human beings, about faces of these guys, and about the nuances of humanity just comes out at you like a freight train.
They Shall Not Grow Old will be shown in full on the BBC, and it will also get an outing on the big screen as part of the London Film Festival. It's not the only work at the festival which provides a window into the past. The British Film Institute has been digitally restoring 120-year-old Victorian films. Unusually, these movies were shot on 68mm film, almost twice the size of conventional 35mm film stock.
It's a joy to restore these films because you're dealing with this large format picture with an enormous amount of detail in it. The only problem is it's so fragile, so you have to unroll it really carefully because otherwise the emulsion can peel off.
The films themselves are each only about a minute in duration, depicting events like a royal tea party at Clarence House. But while their runtime may be small, the size of the original film means it can be blown up and is going to be projected onto an IMAX screen as part of the festival, allowing us a little glimpse of the past on the biggest screen around.
That was Mark talking to Sir Peter Jackson. And that's it for this week. Don't forget we live on Facebook and on Twitter at BBC Click. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon.